That's the only way the price comes back to, closer to the spot price. But that loss versus rebalancing affects us as LPs in the pool. And it really affects us when volatility increases up or down. It doesn't matter. So we want to protect against that. And the way that we protect against that is by installing an oracle into the pools.
Yeah,
So
you can mitigate it with active fees, like they're not static.
that's another way to do it. And so when you marry these things together, the active fee tier, so the fee tier that changes based on volatility of the underlying, and the oracles, when you add these two things together, you can really mitigate that lever. So yeah. And by mitigating lever, you can increase your returns. The research that I have seen says by between 15 and 20% annually. So Yuri, if you were able to do 80% as an LP over the last 12 months, imagine being able to do 20% more than that just by using better pools,
Well,
right?
probably I should deduct the 15%.
So yeah. But thanks, man. That was really good. So let's see. I've got Paulo. Paulo, go ahead.
Hey David, just about oracles, you mentioned that in Uniswap V4, for example, they arbitrage away because the pool itself doesn't know the price. Did they solve that with Contango, or those three oracles that they have there are just for reference and they're not like within that strategy or pool itself?
Yeah, so Contango is a little bit of a different product. So liquidity provision, when you provide liquidity, you are short gamma. When you're using Contango, it's really more of like an interest rate arbitrage or just like a way of, trading using leverage. The beauty of Contango is those three oracles and their aggregator. Their aggregator is very, very good. They get great data. It's slow, but it's very, very high quality. But the oracles over there, it's a combination of the three oracles that they use on Contango, plus they've got like a 9-day volume weighted average price on there. So they use a combination of the three oracles plus a 9-day VWAP. And what that means is, let's say that you're in a position with two stable coins and one of your stable coins depegs. Well, that instantaneous depeg does not necessarily mean that you're going to get liquidated in the position because it's going to take 9 days. So that depeg needs to persist for more than just like, a couple of minutes or a couple of hours for you to actually, for that volume weighted average price to actually move low or high enough, depending on which side depegs, for you to get liquidated. So yeah, Contango is a different type of protocol.
So
Um,
those oracles, they do provide protection in a way that you just described, but it doesn't really compare to what you're trying to achieve with the
well,
V4 hooks.
different, kind of a different purpose, I think. So, the purpose of using oracles on a pool is so that the pool knows the external price. If the pool knows the external price, then there's no spread to arbitrage away. Now, on Contango, you need those oracles because that's one of your core risks when you're using leverage on money markets like that. One of your core risks is a stale Oracle feed or an Oracle feed that it doesn't have some type of timer attached to it. So if there's a temporary depeg, you could get liquidated if you don't have some type of a buffer. So using three oracles together on Contango plus that 9-day volume weighted average price, those two things together provide a lot of protection against sudden depegs that then repeg. So it's a little bit different on Contango. But yeah, understanding oracles, and there are different types of price oracles too. They're not all created equal. So, but the bottom line here is to mitigate lever, we need oracles and we also need to be able to, dynamically change the fee tier of the pool. So pillar one, that's the oracle guard. And pillar two is the volatility tracking. So those are the two pillars of mitigating lever. Now, the third thing here is MEV. So did you guys see, and this is a little bit different, but did you see the founder of Aave? He He got into some hot water because the swaps on Aave are using CowSwap, and CowSwap protects against MEV very, very well. Does a great job. Now, what happens to those MEV funds? The funds that are, saved from being essentially stolen, those funds need to go somewhere. And what the guy at Aave did is he said, hey, you know what? I own this thing. They're going to my wallet. And you know what that did? It gave him a source of like $10 million a year in revenue just from the MEV extraction on the swaps on his protocol. But he's got all these token holders that hold his governance token, the Aave governance token. And they were not that happy that that revenue was not flowing back to them. So that's where you get this fight, right? They're fighting over, 8 figures is a lot of money. And, the guy who built the protocol, could potentially have his protocol taken from him by token holders because, hey, you know what? If he can't convince them to vote in his way or, for him, he might lose control of it. MEV and dynamic fees. That's the third pillar here. So it's just 3 things: the oracles, the volatility adjustment, the dynamic volatility adjustment, and the MEV capture. So with those 3 things, I propose that we'll be able to increase our performance in these new V4 pools by at least 15%. That's what the research says. So here's how it works. In fact, why don't I just stop blabbing and let's just go ahead and play the video because I think that this will be pretty good for us. So,
all right, everyone, let's get into it. Today we're going to get our hands dirty building a really powerful DeFi primitive on Uniswap V4. We're talking about a technical deep dive into a hook that's designed to combat MEV, maximal extractable value, and really to make providing liquidity a much more sustainable game. So let's jump right in. So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll kick things off with the economic thesis, the why behind all this. Then we'll cover the new foundation in Uniswap V4, dive into the 3-pillar architecture of our hook, map out the implementation blueprint, and wrap up with some crucial safety checks. Let's go. Okay, let's start with the economic thesis, the why. Before we even think about code, we have to understand the fundamental problem we're trying to solve here. What's the point? Okay, so if you've been an LP, you've definitely heard of impermanent loss, right? It's a pain, but it's reversible if prices come back. What we really need to talk about is this much nastier thing called loss versus rebalancing, or LVR. And look at this table, specifically the reversibility column. That's the key. IL, you can recover from it. LVR, nope. That's a permanent, irreversible hit to your capital.
So I just want to pause here for a second and just make sure that we're all on the same page. So impermanent loss is reversible. Lever is not. Now, why is lever not reversible? Well, because you're essentially having tokens extracted from your position by smarter and faster arbitrageurs. Impermanent loss is also foundational to liquidity provision. It is reversible. It's almost more theoretical than something that's like more like a tax, like lever. So does this make sense? Just want to make sure that this makes sense before we continue.
They look similar, but they are different, right?
Yeah,
They're
different.
Similar in a way that you're losing value on the LP. But I imagine if you were able to spot that difference, because I remember that you were looking at revert and you were measuring everything in ETH. And I wonder if you were able to spot that some of those tokens went away.
So it's very, very difficult to measure in real time. If I just bring up one of my positions on revert right now, let's just take a look at this. So the challenge with this, you see how I'm measuring this in ETH terms up top, but then in US dollar terms in the position. So it's telling me, okay, I'm plus 5K on the position. Great, but is it? Because the asset value in ETH terms continues to decline on the way up. And if price were to revert back to my entry, I would likely have fewer ETH than what I entered with, even accounting for the fees, So when volumes are way, way down, it's not structurally profitable to be an LP in most pools. And the only reason that I'm sticking with this is because I believe that over a longer period of time, I'm not talking about 2 or 3 weeks, I'm talking about 6, 12 months. I believe that over a longer period of time, structurally, implied vol in these mainnet pools is greater than the realized vol of ETH. That's what I believe. But for right now, this is not structurally profitable. And that's why I'm working to solve for it by creating a V4 hook. So this asset value up top here, even though the pool in US dollar terms is up, in ETH terms, it's down. And when I get back to my entry, it's likely that even accounting for fees, I didn't make money. So that's what I'm working to fix. So did that make sense, Paulo? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
glad you're putting the right words because I've seen this happen before. And yeah, it goes back to where it was. I didn't make money. If anything, I
Right.
lost.
Right. So it's not just the lever. It's also, well, lever is essentially your gamma tax. If you're short gamma, but your theta is not significantly greater than your gamma, then yeah, you're going to generate all these fees, but the fees are either just keeping you at break even or not even getting you to break even. So, that's why you need that positive variance risk premium. You need the implied vol in the pool to be greater than the realized vol externally. There are ways to mitigate that, and that's why we're going to take a look at these hooks. So let me go ahead and continue playing this here.
It's a bleed that doesn't stop, and that is the problem we're going after. So what is LVR, really? Well, just think of it as a tax, a volatility tax. It's the money that gets siphoned away from LPs by super-fast arbitrage bots.